Days ago, the British Chamber of Commerce in China released a survey on business sentiment in China. It shows that half of UK companies have seen earnings exceeding pre-pandemic levels. For more on that and on the Chinese economy, we have with us today in Beijing Mr. Steven Lynch, Managing Director for the British Chamber of Commerce in China. Mr. Lynch, great to have you here on the Hub on CGTN. First of all, I'm just curious about this report. What do you see as the most important findings of this survey?
So this is the fourth British Business in China Sentiment Survey that we've conducted here in China. We have about 288 companies that have responded, from the FTSE 100 companies right the way down to dynamic startups. And I suppose there's lots of good news within the report, but there's also some concerning issues that we kind of are worried about. I suppose let's start with the positives. Unsurprisingly, optimism has improved from 2020, when we were at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic here in China, and we're seeing revenue levels increase from 2020, and that's been backed up by investment through to 2022. We're seeing more British businesses investing into the China market, and that's largely due to market potential. In fact, 82% have said it's all due to market potential. So that's really positive. On the other side, we're seeing some concerning issues that 3/5 of business have said it actually got harder to do business here in China, and they're still facing significant challenges. Hiring foreign talent has leapfrogged all other issues for British businesses here in China, leapfrogged long-standing issues around cybersecurity and implementations of law and regulations. Now, why is this mobility issue so concerning? I think, unsurprisingly, mobility will be a problem, around the world at a time like this. But one of the concerns for us is around the people-to-people engagement. This underhinges everything around the bilateral and multilateral aspects of China engagement with the world. So if we prohibit some of this travel and this people-to-people engagement, this is not going to be a tap that we can just turn back on in 2 or 3 years. We genuinely risk losing a generation of China advocates, of people who are engaged with China on the ground here. So we risk losing a generation of advocates for the bilateral relationship. So that's one of the big concerns for us is mobility and the existence to bring in foreign nationals into the China market. And that's been a dramatic change from the last year's sentiment survey.
Right, Steven, so are you mostly referring to China's zero tolerance policy for COVID, largely restricting, limiting foreign nationals, businessmen doing business coming over to China?
Yes, exactly. So I think on one hand, China should absolutely be commended for their incredible zero COVID-19 policy. And I think that robust COVID-19 policy has allowed to very strong economic recovery. So we're absolutely not saying we want to bypass quarantine measures. We don't want to bypass any of the healthcare or the COVID tests. But what we are looking for is certainty. The UK does not have direct flights to China. We're still hearing from our members that they're having issues around getting visas for high-skilled talent to come to China. We're having issues around dependents coming into China. So on no aspect are we saying we want to bypass the quarantines or bypass what China is doing. What we want is certainty. We want to be able to have safe, pragmatic travel mechanisms to come to and from China. And I think at a time like this, for the UK, where we are seeing lots of people looking at the next year, that there is no certainty that they can come and go from China, we're seeing a lot of people looking to leave the country, and they're not being replaced. And I think that is our biggest concern around hiring foreign talent and mobility coming in and out of China.
Yeah, I have some British friends here in China and expats for that matter, and they've been talking about their dependents not being able to make the trip over to China. But looking at the survey that is called British Business in China Sentiment Survey. The survey, as you pointed out, in that 52% of UK companies are actually optimistic about the outlook in the Chinese market. Why do you think that is the case?
Well, this is largely due to China's economic recovery due to COVID-19. As I mentioned, China should be commended for their zero tolerance policy on one aspect. That has meant that the environment can flourish in that aspect. So a huge part of this is down to China's market potential, market opportunities here in China. A lot of the businesses have been here for over 40 years. They're really committed here in market. So again, we're seeing this optimism coming through. We're seeing optimism levels, pick back up from 2020, and we're seeing that being backed up by investment. We've also seen lots of positive engagement around the bilateral relationship in the last few weeks and the last few months. And that's been highlighted by Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister, having a call with Xi Jinping. That's an incredibly positive step moving forward. So again, I think there's lots of optimism here in market. There's lots of opportunities. Of course, this sentiment survey looks at some of the market access barriers, the business environment, but we also highlight some of the incredible opportunities between the UK and China. And again, there is lots of opportunities moving forward into 2022.
All right, we know that policy matters in China, and many people who are China observers are watching very closely China's senior-most leaders' meetings. Recently, China had a meeting between December the 8th until the 10th. It is called, the Central Economic Work Conference, held by the Politburo of the CPC. What's your takeaway from the meeting about China's economy going forward?
Well, I think my takeaway is that there's just huge potential and there's huge opportunities to collaborate and move forward together. Again, when we talk about unlocking some of these market access barriers, we're doing this in the interest of both our nations, to have this win-win collaboration. So I think there's so many complementary areas in which the UK and China and the UK and Europe can work together and strengthen ties. Again, I look at sort of the footprint that the UK has in China here, and it's a high value added services. Our strength lies in professional and financial services, which again is an area in which China is looking to develop and looking to strengthen. Mm-hmm. So these are really key areas that we can absolutely collaborate on together. And again, looking at the recent meeting that took place, and again, if we look back to just a few months ago, back in the UK, we had COP26 and we had COP15 here in China. This is a huge area around net zero, around decarbonisation, that the UK and China have complementary services, complementary industries that can work together. So again, I look at that meeting with optimism. There are certainly issues that we must address, but these are real opportunities as well looking forward.
We know that from the survey, half of the UK companies have seen earnings exceeding pre-pandemic levels. That means still a large amount of a large portion of the UK companies in China have not seen their earnings exceeding pre-pandemic levels. Also in this report, 46% are saying that they're increasing investment in China, but 39% there will be no change, and 7% say they will actually decrease investment. Can you give us a breakdown, when it comes to sectors and industries? Which sectors are the British companies, exporters, investors particularly interested in working with China and the Chinese market?
Well, it's great. You know the numbers better than me, so thank you very much for that.
It's my team.
And what we're calling, sort of what we've seen from the data is a fragile recovery. There's still a long way for certain businesses on the road to recovery. But again, as I mentioned, we are seeing these optimism levels increase. So some of the areas where we're delighted to see improvement, retail, consumer goods, we've seen opening up in the financial service sector. These are all really positive movements, and we're seeing that being backed up by investment. We're seeing some of the issues be addressed, some of the long-standing issues be addressed, and that's going to be further improved by further investment into the market. That's to say not every sector is seeing this optimism. We've obviously seen, unsurprisingly, issues around the hospitality, around travel, around leisure, and indeed education. And again, a big footprint of UK businesses here in China is education. And again, that's the sector that's seeing the biggest disruption around mobility, around high-level talent coming into the country, not to mention also the uncertainty around sort of regulations coming in as well. So again, we're calling a fragile recovery from the British business perspective. We're still not quite at pre-pandemic levels, but in many aspects, we're seeing recovery, and that's a really positive step moving forward.
Right. And then how do you see geopolitical tensions, namely China-US rivalry, impacting businesses and supply chains?
So I think this is one of the questions we directly asked our businesses. Are you being impacted specifically on the UK side, so the UK-China relationship? And half of businesses said that they are concerned. They are concerned about the relationship between UK and China. But we asked this question last year, and it's had a 10% decrease of concern which is, again, a very, very positive step in the right direction. As previously mentioned, we've seen lots of high-level bilateral engagement in the last few weeks. We've seen, again, I go back to Xi Jinping having the call with Boris Johnson. We've seen ministers, our health minister, Ma, having a conversation with Sajid Javid, Alok Sharma, the COP26 president came here to China. So again, it is a concern. Of course, it's, members have said, but again, it's moving in the right direction. And I think that's kind of the critical aspect for our members.
Right. In that report, it says there is a quote-unquote continued concern among the business community as to the lack of a consistent approach taken towards working with China. What exactly does that mean?
Well, again, from the information that our members have provided, the key is uncertainty. Uncertainty around any aspect of business is a risk. And so what, again, members and businesses are calling for is just more certainty in every single aspect of this. We've obviously seen new regulations come out here in China. And again, people are maybe not disagreeing with the actual regulations, just how they've been implemented. The very dramatic nature or the fast nature of them coming through causes issues of how businesses can handle regulations or new laws being implemented. So it's clarity around the new laws, around the regulations, and then how they're implemented. And I think that filters down into every single aspect of what businesses is looking for, and it's all around certainty.
Right, you talk about education, Stephen. I'm asked by many parents watching our program and here in China whether they should consider the UK or the US for, furthering their educational experiences. What will be your answer to that question?
Well, I would hope so. I think the UK has a phenomenal education system, whether that be at school or indeed at university. And again, the UK is open. The UK is an open market. We are delighted to welcome foreign students into the country. And again, we have one of the best education systems in the world. So I would encourage people to engage. And I think when we talk about why it's so important to go to each other's countries and study and be educated, it's because we gain that cultural knowledge of each other. And I think that's so important. That underpins all of our relationships. The people to people, the cultural engagement is absolutely critical. So I would welcome more students from the UK to come here to China, and indeed students going back to the UK as well.
Steven Lynch, Managing Director for the British Chamber of Commerce here in China. Thank you for joining us on The Hub on CGTN.
Thank you very much.
And that would do it for this edition of The Hub. Thank you for watching. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. Get in touch with me on social media if you have any comments or suggestions. Bye for now.